Hello and welcome back to Football League World TV, the last show of an action-packed week in the EFL once again, but we're here for the weekend review ahead of this weekend's action. Joining me today, we have Marcus Ali and Adam Jones. First of all, Marcus, how are you getting on?
Yeah, really well, thanks, Billy. A lot of exciting matches to get into in this show. It should be a good order that we've got to sift through tonight.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm off into Luton tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out, as well as the other matches. Also joined here by Adam. Adam, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. I'm preparing for Reading to ruin my weekend again, but apart from that, yeah, I'm all good, thank you.
You and I both, in that respect, both playing two very good championship teams when looking at it on paper. 7 games in total to talk about on this show today: 4 in the Championship, 2 in League One, and 1 in League Two. I'm going to ask for you to subscribe to Football League World TV. We're closing in on some sort of milestone for the company in general. We're nearly hitting 500 subscribers. So make sure to hit the subscribe if you like what you hear today. And also make sure to like the video. An error on the button there, but we'll go into the first match on the agenda today. That is Bournemouth versus Blackburn, second versus fourth. A good game on paper, it looks like. Marcus, what are you thinking ahead of this game?
Yeah, it's a really interesting matchup. Obviously, Bournemouth have stuttered a little bit, as Fulham have, which has seen West Brom maybe come back into the conversation a little bit in considering how they got that impressive win at Coventry last week, closing the gap to 6 points where it was as big as 8 going into the weekend. So I think Scott Parker's got some things to ponder going into the match, and obviously Blackburn being in such excellent form has to be one of those things. Obviously, Bournemouth took the lead and could maybe have held on for all 3 points at Fulham last weekend. However, the Cottagers were knocking at the door considerably, and I think sort of gathering our thoughts at the end of that match, I think Bournemouth probably would have been more pleased with the point than Fulham. So even though it was an amazing goal from the kickoff, I'm not sure how much we can maybe read into that as in predicting how they're going to get on in the coming weeks. And yeah, Blackburn have just been doing so well under Toby Mowbray. As I've mentioned, have had some injuries to key areas, but it doesn't seem to have affected them. So I think that just speaks volumes to the atmosphere that Mowbray's been able to create. Those players from the fringes really coming in and performing really well. I think Scott Wharton's been one notable name coming in at the left-footed centre-back after a few years with some injury issues. Has really slotted in nicely for Blackburn. So this has got to be one of the most exciting matches in the Championship this weekend. I think Rovers will be quietly optimistic, but Bournemouth definitely rightfully going as favourites for me.
Certainly an enjoyable game on paper. Just looking at Bournemouth, Adam, you think of their recent results, 3 points from the last 4. Is that a little bit concerning, considering that they had a little bit of a collapse around Christmas last time?
Maybe a little bit. I think there's no real worries about Fulham, the Fulham game, because obviously they took the lead from a really good kickoff routine. You know, people were kind of joking about it being a FIFA glitch, but honestly, it was a fantastic little routine that they did, got themselves in the lead, and sometimes that's that kind of little bit of quality or that kind of attention to detail in training that kind of pays dividends. In the game. So for me, I have absolutely no worries because of Scott Parker's attention to detail. We've had several players talk about it. I think Jack Stacey was one of them. I think it might have been Chris Mepham as well. So the fact that he does go so into detail in games and gives them that edge, I don't think really is it doesn't make me worried. It makes me feel a little bit more assured about them. I mean, we talk about Fulham's attacking record as well, but with Bournemouth, they've got their own, decent enough attacking record. I think they only failed to score in 2 of their 21 Championship games so far this season, so that's a pretty decent stat for them. Obviously, going back, I think is going to be the real issue for them, and I think for me, that's something they've got to make sure that they're looking at in training, because if they keep a clean sheet, then they'll kind of give them a platform to go on and win the game. I can trust Gary Cahill to come in and to do a job in there. But I mean, I think the fact that they have wobbled a little bit is a source of encouragement. I think for Blackburn, I think I think the Preston North End game against Bournemouth will be more of a source of encouragement for kind of Blackburn than the Coventry City game, because I think the Coventry City game for Bournemouth, I think for me, it was. I mean, I think the red card pretty much kind of changed the complexion of the game. I don't think they get back into it really. I think they were pretty comfortable at the time. And then obviously Jefferson Lerma got sent off. So for me, that they'll take real confidence, Blackburn, from their local rivals beating Bournemouth at the Vitality Stadium. And knowing the Championship, this is the type of game that they can win, and the type of game that they will win. Knowing the nature of the second tier, it's a bit mad this season, really.
As you say, the nature of the second tier is very unpredictable. But I'm going to come to you, Adam, for your prediction.
I said all that, and I think I'm going to go with a 2-0 Bournemouth win. I think they have enough goals in their team to come through this one. I'm not sure, if we'll see Ben Brereton Diaz scoring. Obviously, he's human after all. He's not going to score in every game, as shown against Stoke City. So I think for me, they might fire a blank in this one. I think Bournemouth will come out on top. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 victory.
Marcus, are you following suit there?
Yeah, similar. Be interesting to see just one other thing. If Steve Cook keeps his place, a rare outing against Fulham. Of course, we both saw that amazing double block. It'd be interesting to see a bit of a club legend on the South Coast. I'm going 3-1 Bournemouth. I feel quite bullish about this one. I think Blackburn are more of a top half side that's overperforming at the moment, and Bournemouth are, credible automatic promotion contenders. So 3-1, comfortable win.
Certainly agree with you two there. And a third person here has agreed. Helen has commented, I think that Bournemouth will win as well. So that's 4-4 from the show here. So we'll see how that one pans out. Next game on the agenda is Luton Town versus Fulham. It's a difficult test on paper for Luton, especially with confidence after a 3-0 win at Blackpool, but it's the Cottagers that it's really about at the moment. That they're unbeaten in their last 10 games, winning the first 7, and then drawing the next 3. So, Marcus, just coming to you on Fulham, is those 3 draws, has that concerned you slightly, or do you think the manner of performance is still there from Marco Silva's side?
I'm concerned a little bit. I think there could be a little bit of complacency coming in, and I don't blame them for that, given the gap that they've managed to create. Particularly their last away match, they drew 1-1 at Preston, and despite Preston's goal being very fortunate due to a handball or a few handballs in the build-up, I thought Fulham were extremely disappointing, and Preston thoroughly deserved the bit of luck that they managed to carve out in the end. Fulham went ahead early through Tim Ream and then really just sat back, and Preston, a side that obviously weren't performing very well considering that they went and sacked Frankie McAvoy just 2 games after, were able to have the much better of the game, dominate midfield areas and really just outfought them. And I think with the atmosphere that Luton have the potential to create a Kenilworth Road, of course, buzzing off that 3-0 win at Blackpool, I think they can make this one really interesting and a difficult match for Fulham. Obviously, Luton lost 2-1 at home to Cardiff, which was quite a disappointing result, I think, last time out at home. Although aside from that, they have been pretty strong at home ever since promotion to the Championship, really, but particularly this season and last term. So I think Nathan Jones will be confident of making this an intimidating test for Fulham. And I do think that there's maybe a bit of a mental edge, Luton in that chasing pack, and Fulham looking over their shoulders and still knowing that the likes of West Brom, who aren't performing very well at the moment, need to win 2 games just to catch up with them. In that sort of congested pack, I do see Luton, maybe along with Middlesbrough, as the 2 sides most likely to break into the top 7, top 6 in the next few months. So I don't think this one is a foregone conclusion at all. Obviously, Alexander Mitrovic has experienced something of a drought. I'm not sure you can call a 3-game non-scoring run a drought, but by his incredibly high standards, maybe it is. And I definitely think this one is going to be a lot closer than maybe the billing he'll get.
Certainly. And Adam, looking a little bit more at Luton, Nathan Jones has confirmed that Harry Cornick will miss the test with a calf injury. Do you think that will impact anything at all? Often he's been used as a key figure in stretching opposition defences, especially at Kenilworth Road. Or do you think Luton do have somewhat depth to cover from that.
I do think they do have that depth. Obviously, he's been a fantastic, it's been a fantastic combination with Adebayo. I think he's been, those two have been a real threat this season. So obviously it's going to be a bit of a blow. But if I'm right in saying they're also without him in the last game against Blackpool, and they, adapted very well. So, it could potentially be the Adam Armstrong effect at Blackburn, where he's left and they've kind of managed to adapt and thrive without him. That's not saying that he's a bad player at all. I think 7 goals and 3 assists in 20 championship games shows that he's a decent player and one that they'd rather have in their team rather than not. But I think for me, I think they can definitely cope without him. Obviously with the home advantage as well, they'll have that 12th man there. With the I'd say cozy Kenilworth Road atmosphere, obviously with how close the fans are to the pitch as well. So I think for me, it's good that they adapted against Blackpool. I thought that win at Bloomfield Road was absolutely crucial. I think the loss against Cardiff City was actually a real sucker blow, a real sucker punch as well. And I think, obviously they got themselves back into the game against Cardiff and then concede through, yet another cross, in really disappointing circumstances, which was a real mental blow for them. But the way that they came back, I think, will be crucial going into this one. And as Marcus said, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion at all. For Fulham, obviously, you can kind of excuse their late run. Obviously, they had a bit of illness in the camp as well. But I think for me, if Luton can get a slice of luck, then there's no reason why they can't get something out of this one. Obviously, Fulham have lost against the likes of Blackpool and Reading as well. When obviously I think particularly Reading had quite a slice of luck in terms of Fulham not being clinical at all. So yeah, as I said and as Marcus said, I don't think this is a foregone conclusion at all, and I think it will be a really competitive game.
Sticking with you, Adam, for your score prediction.
Again, I say that, but I'm going to go with a really narrow away win. I think Luton will give Fulham a good game, but I'm going to go with a 1-0 Fulham win.
And what about you, Marcus?
Not just because you're hosting, Billy, but this is the Championship. I'm happy to throw a spanner in the works. 3-2 Luton.
Well, we also have contrasting thoughts in the comments section. Harry here believes that Luton could perhaps sneak something similar sort of line of process as Marcus there, but then Football League World TV veteran Wayne Walden has also got in touch and is predicted that Fulham will win 4-1. So we'll have to wait and see how that all pans out. The next game on the agenda is Swansea versus Nottingham Forest, a game between two clubs that find themselves in mid-table at the moment. But I think we could all three of us say here that they are both teams that will have promotion or at least top 6 aspirations. So firstly, looking at Swansea, Marcus, it's 2 defeats in a row for the first time this season. Do you think that will impact them too much, or do you still see them as troubling the playoff positions and getting something out of this game?
I'm a little bit concerned with their recent run. Obviously, they were performing well before the loss to Reading a couple of weeks ago. But I think that there might be a little bit of a blueprint. Sides that are more happy to just let them have the ball and be patient and sit in their low block with players that can hurt them on the counter-attack, as we saw Blackpool do when they got a draw at the Swansea.com stadium a few weeks ago. They're finding it hard to break down. We know how they're going to play. But they're really not creating as many chances as they should be, given how much of the ball they're having. And I think Jamie Patterson, they're too reliant on him personally. I think, the amount of assists and goals that he's scored in quite a low scoring side on the whole, shows where they need to invest in January, but also an area of the pitch that if the opposition can limit them, then there isn't really many alternate routes to go. I think Ethan Laird's had a good season, first half of the season as a right wing back, but yeah, I don't see an all-round threat from Swansea just yet. I think they're too reliant on certain players, and I think Forest will be aware of that, and Steve Cooper will be happy and content to sit in. He knows he's got players like Brennan Johnson and Zinkernagel that can be really dangerous in transition. and they can allow Swansea to have the ball and really just hope to wait it out. Really, be patient. Cooper will possibly know this Swansea squad better than anyone. So yeah, I am a little bit worried that the last couple of results are a sign of things to come from Swansea, and maybe they could fall further away from their top 6 ambitions before we see them turn a corner.
Yeah, I am interested to see how Steve Cooper is welcomed back to the Swansea.com stadium. Obviously, spent a few years with Swansea. He's seen a lot of success with Swansea in terms of getting them into the playoff positions and that brand of attacking football as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Looking at Nottingham Forest and what Cooper's current project is all about. One defeat in their last 13 games under Cooper is a great start in my eyes. Fair too many draws if you sort of look into it a bit more. Would that be concerning you, Adam, that the fact that they're not turning their draws into wins at the moment, that the constant dropping of 2 points, is that something that could hurt them come the end of the season?
Yeah, 100%. I think them, picking up wins compared to draws will be the difference between whether they can get into the playoffs and kind of just finishing just outside. I think they'll continue to climb the table. I think they'll achieve a top half finish under Cooper. Obviously, he's proven his pedigree at Swansea City before, and he's got a decent, range of players at his disposal. And the fact that they're really adaptable as well, which I have to commend. They've gone back to a 4-2-3-1. Obviously, they were playing 3 at the back earlier in Cooper's reign, but the 4-2-3-1 seems to have paid dividends for them. And I think also it has to be, maybe kind of like a negative. I think the fact that it took them so long to break down Peterborough United, I think it was until like the 74th minute that they took to get in front, which I think is going to be, against perhaps better opposition. They would have been not punished, but maybe slightly in terms of, maybe only getting a draw out of that one. So yeah, it's going to be a real, it's a real source of concern for me. But I think the fact that they can turn draws into wins, but I think it will also depend on injuries, potential recalls in January, and recruitment as well. They need strength in depth to maximise performance levels and make sure that they get the 3 points in there. So for me, the fact that they have been adaptable though is great, and I think it will serve them well. I just think, as you said, draws. They need to turn draws into wins, and they haven't been managing to do that enough recently. One loss in 13 is all right, but as we've shown with West Bromwich Albion as well, if you fail to turn them into wins, then you'll be punished.
Certainly. I'll stick with you, Adam, for your score prediction.
This is going to be a really tricky one. I mean, if I was a betting man, I don't think I'd touch this one. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw.
What about you, Marcus?
2-1 Forest. I think they can edge it and upset the home crowd somewhat. I think that 2-0 win at home to Posh last weekend was more important than maybe the result was spectacular on paper. Getting those 2 late goals with Garner and Yates was good for building momentum and belief. I think the gap is just 6 points to the playoff places. So, a win could take them a long way towards that.
Yeah, it's certainly exciting to see how this one pans out and to see the atmosphere at the Swansea.com stadium with Cooper back at the ground. Next, we're on to West Brom and Adam's club, Reading. West Brom have been strong opponents at home. And Adam, I'll come to you first about Reading, because Andy Carroll is scoring for fun at the moment. And it's recently come out that they're working on offering him a new contract past January. So how important has he been so far? And do you think they're going down the right route in offering him an extended contract if it comes to fruition?
I was muted then. I think for me, in terms of Andy Carroll, it's not just his goals. I think the all-round play that he offers and the threat and the stuff that he does off the ball, I think is, kind of goes under the radar a bit as a real attacking threat. Someone you can link up the play. And I think for me, the stuff that he does, without the goals, it is just as important. Obviously, we've got George Puskas, who's starting most of our league games this season, he just can't seem to get on the score sheet, and he seems really, really devoid of confidence. Obviously, we've got a teenager in Jamari Clark as well, who's currently out injured. Hopefully, he returns at some point. And obviously, Lucas Zhao as well, who's out until January. So him coming in has been a real game changer for us. He might have only scored one goal for us so far, but I'm sure there are plenty more to come. There was a couple of shots in the last outing against Hull City. So for me, offering him a contract until the end of the season would be ideal for me. And especially if he can take the £1,000 a week, I think even if he does get injured, then I think it's worth the risk if he's only on 1,000. Just to make sure that he's here until the end of the campaign, which I think is important. But I think he might be staying somewhere near the hotel as well. I think he might be staying in the club's hotel. So we'll just give him all the room service he wants as kind of the sweetener in the deal, and try and do everything we can to keep him at the club. And in our financial restrictions, that's what we need to do.
And sticking with you, Adam, Reading have picked up some important away wins again in some destinations that have proved to have been quite difficult for other teams this season. So is that providing you with confidence that you can go again and pick up an important away win against a team like West Brom?
Yes, but I think there's a couple of away wins, I think, for me, that we rode our luck quite a bit. I mean, against Swansea City, we could have arguably lost that one. With the chances that Swansea had, I'm not even sure how we managed to get a win from Cardiff City, even though it was against a struggling side at the time under Mick McCarthy. I think Cardiff showed much more urgency. So I think for me tomorrow, I think it'll be just a step too far. I don't think we'll get the win. There's every possibility that we'll get a draw, but I just don't think we have the attacking urgency at the moment. I mean, we can capitalise on mistakes. We've shown that against Swansea City, but I think for me, there's a real lack of urgency otherwise going forward, like there was against Hull when we should have perhaps gone for it a bit more. So that's the only concern for me going into this one. But I think the best that I can hope for at the moment is a draw.
And Marcus, moving on to West Brom, a word that we've commonly used this season about the Baggies is inconsistency. But looking at their home record, they're still unbeaten at the Hawthorns this season. So do you think that could be key in terms of their automatic promotion pursuit? Do you think ensuring that they can maintain being a force at home, do you think that will stand them in good stead for contending for the automatic promotion places?
Yeah, definitely. It has been something that they've been able to lean on so far this season. You wouldn't have thought just how strong their home record has been, given the sort of treatment of the players and the performances, and the reaction to Valérien Ismaël himself in the last few weeks at the Hawthorns. I think there's a real impatience for West Brom to get promoted back into the Premier League this season. Last time they were in the Championship, it took them 2 seasons. They lost once in the playoffs and then finished second in 1920. So, I mean, it's almost like they've been in this position before. But, of course, when you don't play pretty football where the ball spends a little bit too much time in the air for some people's likings, there's a decrease in the confidence that a manager is being shown. I think that's definitely the case with Ismaël and the Baggies at the moment. So I think there's almost a chance for Reading to frustrate West Brom. And I think they've definitely got the leaders and the senior heads in the camp to be able to do that. And then I think it gets to the point where the crowd get on the team's back, get on Ismaël's back, and it becomes an atmosphere that's much easier for Reading and more difficult for West Brom. I was really impressed with them last weekend at Coventry. I know it was only a 2-1 win, but they were really comfortable in the first half. Callum Robinson looked back to his best. He was causing them all kinds of problems, and of course got the assist for Carlin Grant. Although I think they definitely are a team that's suited to playing away from home at the moment, given what the atmosphere has been like. They got in my eyes, what was a decent point after going down to 10 men against Nottingham Forest, and could well have won it in their last home match, and then were greeted with boos at the final whistle. So I'm a bit puzzled with the atmosphere at the Hawthorns at the moment, even looking at their position in the table as well. They're still only 6 points from getting back in the race, and Bournemouth and Fulham have been faltering. So I think Reading can profit on that. And although the home form has been really good, there has been quite a few draws cropping up lately, and I don't think the attitude and the mood in the camp at the moment is one that makes that impressive home record maybe as relevant as it would have been maybe a couple of months ago.
I'll stick to you, Marcus, for your score prediction.
For that reason, I think I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think West Brom are easily the better team, but I think I've been quite impressed with Reading in the last few weeks. They've been slowly ticking away. They should have beaten a really in-form Hull side last weekend. An unfortunate mistake from Luke Southwood and a couple of penalty appeals on another day. I think they definitely take the 3 points from that game. So you could argue that Hull have been playing better than West Bromwich Albion in recent weeks as well. So I think Reading should be able to give us as good as they get. So yeah, I'll go for a 1-1 draw.
And Adam, do you have the backing of you boys this weekend?
Half and half. I'm going to go as well with a 1-1 draw. I think I can see us getting on the score sheet, but I can see us perhaps conceding once as well. So I think it just feels right for me. A 1-1 draw. It was 1-1 last time we went to Hawthorn. So yeah, I'm going to go with the 1-1.
Yeah, a 1-1 draw. Yeah, typically associated with West Brom and Reading, it seems. So we'll drop down to League One now, and it's two playoff competing teams that we'll talk about. Sunderland versus Plymouth Argyle. Sunderland have been very, very strong at the Stadium of Light, similar to what we were just talking about West Brom. So, Marcus, do you think that could be key? In again, I think we can draw comparisons to West Brom in what is expected to be an automatic promotion push.
Massively, yeah. A bit of a revival in the last few weeks, results-wise. I'm not sure the performances have quite been there to back them up, but an enormous positive has to be that Ross Stewart got back amongst the goals in their 5-0 win against Morecambe in midweek, a player that's, has fallen off the standards that he set at the start of the season. Obviously, Nathan Broadhead's coming into his own as well, the Everton loanee, which is a huge boost for Lee Johnson because, they were a little too reliant on certain players to providing that bit of inspiration in the final third, hence why they ended up going on that tricky run. They ended up having quite a poor November because of it. But Plymouth is a really tough match. I know they're on a little bit of a winless run. I think 4 matches now, and make what you will of Ryan Lowe leaving them to join Preston North End. I think it's a huge positive that Stephen Schumacher's still there. And I thought it was an excellent point. I know you were at the game, Billy, so I'd be interested to hear what you made of Plymouth's first match under Schumacher. But for me, on paper, that's a great point at MK Dons. Kept them inside the playoff places. And I think they should be feeling optimistic going towards the Stadium of Light. It was only Morecambe. I'm not really reading too much into that result in midweek, although it was a very commanding win. I think it's going to be a really tough match. Obviously, Sunderland have been strong at home, but there's no reason why Plymouth can't be going into this match thinking they can pick up all 3 points.
As Marcus said, I was at Stadium MK to watch MK Dons versus Plymouth during the week, and in answer to your question, I was really, really impressed with how Plymouth played. I think the organisation, the system that they operate in, still there under Schumacher. I don't think that's going to change, similar to what we can say about MK Dons when Russell Martin departed and Liam Manning took the reign. So coming to you, Adam, about Plymouth and under this new manager and everything's all a bit up in the air, but still managed to put in a good performance. But if you think about the amount of miles they're having to do, travelling to Milton Keynes and then up to Sunderland, do you think that could play into Sunderland's hand come tomorrow?
Yeah, 100%. I think so. But also you've got to counteract that with the fact that they secured their appointment so early on. I think they announced Schumacher before Preston announced Lowe. So I think for me, them having that certainty will play a real good part. And I think that can only be a positive for them. Obviously, I think that played a part, obviously, in the MK Dons draw as well, which is no mean feat really away from home against Ryan Manning's side, a pretty decent outfit. So for me, that was a good decision to get him in early. A lot of people would say they might need a more experienced manager, but the formula seemed to be working there under Ryan Lowe. So I think that was a good appointment, and we'll soon see how that pans out. I think they'd lost their last 3 games under Ryan Lowe, which means them having a new man at the helm. I know he was previously assistant manager, but just having a new voice in there to give the team talk and just a few tactical tweaks that he would probably make, I think will really pay dividends for them in this one. I think that could be a real advantage that they can utilise. But I think the one positive that Sunderland have, other than the home advantage. And obviously they've been pretty decent at home this season. Obviously they do need to make sure they're winning more games that they're drawing to make it a fortress, in my opinion. But I think the one other advantage that Sunderland have is the fact that they have a game in hand over Plymouth, which I think will kind of play in their mind psychologically will make them kind of play with a bit more freedom, knowing that if they kind of slip up, then they've got another game to kind of redeem themselves. And I think that for me will be a little bit detrimental to Plymouth. So it'll be an uphill battle, but it's certainly, a challenge that they can rise to.
Coming back to you, Adam, what's your score prediction?
I'm going to go I think I'm going to go with a narrow 2-1 home victory. I think that they'll utilise their home advantage quite well. But yeah, I don't think this will be an easy tie for Sunderland by any stretch, even though they won so comfortably against Morecambe.
Marcus, do you also think that the Black Cats will win all 3 points?
No, I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw, but I think Plymouth could well win this game. They're too good of a team to continue this drab run, really. And I think, Sunderland, I'm not reading too much into the Morecambe result. I think they'll do well and would be content with a 2-2 draw.
It certainly promises to be an exciting game. The next game on the list, another League One clash involving teams. Well, one team that is in and around the promotion and automatic mix, and one team that should be, given the talent within their squad. It's Wigan versus Ipswich. And coming to you, Marcus, first, how impressed have you been with Wigan this season?
Hugely. I mean, the job that Liam Richardson did last season just to keep them in the league was incredible with everything that they had to battle against. So to be able to achieve what he has in the first half of the season, given how many new signings there were, just to integrate them into the squad, credit to him. He's done an incredible job. And of course, his old superior, Paul Cook, has lost his job while he carries on thriving at Wigan. So he deserves so much credit. They've scored a lot of late goals recently to keep them sort of pushing Rotherham at the top of the table. Of course, the Latics are actually top on points per game. So I'm not sure how sustainable that is. Obviously, just get a late win against Shrewsbury Town in midweek. But it does demonstrate the spirit and belief that there is within the squad. So I don't quite think they're on Rotherham's level in terms of who will possibly go on to win the title, but it's clear that they're all believing. He's clearly got a really good atmosphere within the group, and they should be confident of picking up another 3 points given what's gone on at Ipswich in the last week or so.
And Adam, looking at Ipswich in a bit more detail and in relation to this game as well, they seem to have the squad. In my eyes, at the start of the season, they had the manager, they had the backing. So in your eyes, what really has gone wrong so far? And do you think that they've got what it takes to travel to the DW Stadium and impose themselves and cause chaos?
I think the key thing for me is consistency. And I think that Paul Cook could have used that, that excuse of kind of gelling a new squad together at the start of the season. They signed 19 new players, which is, absolutely a huge rebuild. I don't think it's something that I haven't seen certainly before. Definitely not as a football writer, and I don't think I've even really seen it as a football fan, getting 19 players in. So you could use that at the start of the season, but obviously sacked in the end because they were too inconsistent. And I think, was the sacking right? I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, you covered that in another show, but it was a difficult decision, obviously, for the board. Can they cause Wigan kind of any problems at the weekend? I think, it depends on which Ipswich we're going to get. Obviously, going back to the consistency thing, they may be conceding, but they're not exactly great going forward at the moment. Obviously, they were probably better going forward at the start of the season than they are right now. I think it's 2 goals in their last 5 league games, and firing blanks in 4 of these is unacceptable, really. And there's no wonder why Paul Cook went. That really gave the board a reason to dismiss him. So, it doesn't look promising for them this weekend. Obviously, the gap is widening as well between them and the top 6, which isn't the most promising thing. But as you said, they've got strength in depth. They've got championship quality players. They've got players on the bench that should arguably be starting. Obviously, Connor Chaplin has been on the bench a number of times when he should be starting in the third tier, played a big part for Barnsley last season, obviously when they finished in the playoffs. So, yeah, they've got the strength and depth, and that's the one thing that gives me confidence. But I think the key thing will be getting the managerial appointment right, and I think that's the reason why it's good that they're taking their time. But obviously they're stuck in limbo at the moment, and I think that will only harm them under a caretaker manager.
And I'll stick with you, Adam, for your score prediction.
I'm going to go with a comfortable 2-0 home win, I think, for Wigan Athletic. I think everything's with them this weekend. Obviously, knowing the nature of the EFL, not just the Championship, it's a game that Ipswich Town could win. But I think for me, it's going to have to be a 2-0 home win and quite a comfortable one as well.
Marcus, do you share the same opinion there?
Yeah, I'll go exactly the same. 2-0 Wigan. I think quite a straightforward home win. I think quite a lot of the Ipswich players are still a little bit surprised that Paul Cook got the sack. Of course, he was a big pull, I think, despite the financial backing for them to go to Ipswich in the first place. So, yeah, there's a bit of a carcass in the squad at the moment that a new manager needs to come and pick up. And I don't think John McGreal's the man to do that.
Certainly another exciting League One clash to keep our eyes on. We're going to dip down to League Two for our final game, and we're going to look at Harrogate versus Northampton Town. Harrogate, obviously, surprising most at the start of the season with a strong start to the campaign. I think that their grip has been loosened a little bit in recent weeks, but still showing glimpses of the quality that they've got. Adam, coming to you first. 1 point off the playoff positions and playing a team that are banging form in Northampton Town. What case can you make for them to go on and record another victory here?
I think for me, this is the perfect position for them to be in. I know that they thrived at the start of the season, and that's why it's probably a bit weird of me saying that. But I think for me, they want to be looking ahead rather than looking behind them. And I think that was probably a bit too much of a problem for them. I know that there wasn't that much really pressure on them, this season, considering they finished in the bottom half of the table last season. But for me, I think that, the fact that it probably did get a little bit too much pressure for them, when they were really thriving and doing well. So the fact that they're kind of outside, obviously in ninth at the moment, and just 1 point, 1 or 2 points outside the playoff zone will play in their favour, I think, mentally. So that's a real source of encouragement for them. I don't think they should take I don't think they should take the loss too hard against Forest Green Rovers. I just think they're a class above this season. So, under Rob Edwards. So I think for me that they should kind of just put that out of their mind. But I think, with a win, I think they could be the victims of their own success. But yeah, I mean, they could climb into the playoff zone with a win. So it's one of those, do they want to be looking behind them and getting another win on the board, or do they want to perhaps draw the game? But this is a game that they can win. Obviously, they're at home and they'll want to go for it as well. So, I think they'll be hoping for another win and getting points on the board. I think at the moment it is important. I think it's just good that if they stay around this kind of area where they're kind of pushing and not kind of looking behind them, and I think that'll be beneficial for them. Football's as much of a mental game as a physical, and I think that's the kind of the main case that I can make for them. In terms of going into the weekend's game, the mental side of it, I think it will play in their favour.
Well, the Sulphurites certainly are in a good position when you consider what they've achieved in recent seasons, and I think that's an interesting point that you make. Do they want to be looking over their shoulder at the promotion chasing pack, or do they want to be that team that people are disregarding really and not really feeling deserve a shot at promotion? But yeah, they're certainly impressing at the moment. Another team that can be argued that are impressing are Northampton Town in second place. There's been sort of a distinct lack of goals compared to their other top 7 counterparts at the moment. Northampton just proven to be not as relentless or don't have the firepower that the other promotion chasing teams do have. Marcus, for you, is that a concern for you, or do you sort of see it as long as you're winning games and building momentum that way, then these sort of the issue of firepower will start to come, and that won't be an issue no more.
I think they're probably the only team in the League Two promotion race, and definitely the automatic promotion race at the moment, where you look at their defence and you say that's why they're in that position rather than the attacking players. Mitch Pinnock and Sam Hoskins are extremely good wide men for the level, and will create chances in League Two week in, week out. It's just whether they've got the players to finish them off. I think that's somewhere that the Cobblers can look to address in January. Keon Atete's shown in flashes the player that he could be on loan from Tottenham, but Danny Rose hasn't really got going this season. But while their defensive processes have been so good, I don't think that's necessarily something that could drag them away from the promotion race this season. It was an enormous 2-1 win at Exeter in midweek, and they'll take huge confidence from that. It is a long away trip in midweek, but they'll be used to it by now. I feel good about Northampton at the moment, to be honest. Must be one of their first times they've ever met Harrogate Town, but they should be confident given Harrogate's inconsistencies in the last few weeks. I think Northampton, even though it's a little bit concerning, they've won 3 on the bounce, all only by 1 goal. So whether they can continue a run like that, I'm not so sure, but they're very well placed in the league at the moment, and their defence is providing an excellent platform for them to kick on.
And Marcus, do you reckon it will be a 4th successive 1-goal margin victory for Northampton, or can you see Harrogate getting something out of this one?
I think they might come close to it, but I think they'll get pegged back. I'm going 1-1.
And Adam, what about you?
Seeing as Marcus has had a wild card, I think I'm going to go with my own. I think I'm going to go with a 1-0 home win for Harrogate. I'm not sure why. I don't think that Northampton will concede a huge amount of goals, but I kind of fancy Harrogate to nick this one. Jack Diamond's been a very good player for them this season, so he could play a crucial part in that, and I think he's a class above.
Certainly an exciting one to keep our eyes on. Well, that is all we have for today. A big thank you to the pair for joining, and that concludes a week of Football League World content on social platforms. So make sure to get back next week to see our next full week of content. If you've liked this video today, then please make sure to drop it a like on YouTube and subscribe as we edge ever closer to 500 subscribers as a channel. As I said, we'll be back on Monday for another week full of content. So until then, we'll see you.